Wait, where'd you go? There you go.
So I'm calling the
Y'all
regular
hear me?
Allentown Council to order.
Everybody else is on mute, I guess.
We're not on mute, are we?
I don't think so.
I
All
can hear
right,
you.
so
Dan.
would you call the roll, Ashley?
Yes. Councilman Bowles? Councilman Bowles, can you hear us? Can't hear. I'm gonna reach out to him on the phone, and then I'll just continue calling you all. Councilwoman Mignana,
Present.
Councilman Mellanax,
Present.
Councilman Milliken,
Here.
Mayor Woolsey.
Here. So our next first item on the agenda after calling the roll is public comment.
Okay, we have about 17 people signed up to speak. I'm going to call them in order that I received notification from them that they'd like to give public comment. They are limited to 3 minutes, and I will be keeping time.
So since we have a large number of people asking to speak, I would just ask that the citizens please, there's no need to repeat what others have said before, or just share that. And please be brief. Thank you so much.
Karen Beard, you have the floor.
Yes. Can you hear me and see me?
We can hear you. I can't see
Okay,
you.
let's see. I don't see where my unmute. I mean, I see I'm unmuted, but I don't see where my video is. So,
That's okay. You can continue with just sound.
okay. All right. I'll just go with audio then. I'm speaking on behalf of the Charleston Coalition for Wireless Safety Standards. We are a community organization made up of hundreds of Charleston residents who advocate for wireless safety. And that is the issue we bring to you tonight as you discuss environmental concerns for James Island, because non-ionizing wireless radiation, radio frequency, is considered an environmental pollutant. It is a pollutant we cannot see or hear or feel, but one that is affecting us, especially our children. Our environment is filled with man-made radiation, and thousands of scientific studies have shown man-made radiation disrupts the biological function of human organisms, even when it's at low levels. This science, though, is being ignored by the FCC and wireless industry to protect their profits. They are touting 5G as a green initiative, but 5G is not green. According to a magazine edited by the Institution for Electrical and Electronics Engineers, this is a quote: "A 5G base station is expected to consume 3 times as much power as an existing 4G base station, and many more base stations are required to cover the same area." So it will not be a green initiative for us. The IEE is the world's largest professional organization devoted to engineering and applied sciences. In looking through the James Island website, we could not find that you have passed a small cell ordinance to outline what you will permit within the James Island community regarding small cell antennas. And because of federal and state laws, when the town does not have a small cell ordinance in place, the telecom pretty much has a free rein on the installations. So it greatly behooves the town to pass a strict small cell ordinance, which will protect residents from having small cells too close to their homes. The effort required is worthwhile, because once an antenna is erected, the telecom has permission to change the emissions level and the power level without alerting the town government or the residents. Charleston Coalition for Wireless Safety Standards has information that will help you in drafting a small cell ordinance. We offer our assistance and request a virtual meeting with those who would be involved. We feel we can help you draft an ordinance that will be both protective and will fall within state and federal mandates. We will follow up tomorrow with our contact information to the town administrator. We would also tonight like to take a stand in support of the James Island resolution to address sea level and climate change. Our environment, our total environment is of utmost importance, and there are changes that are spiraling out of control. We must do what we can do to stop the assault on our environment in every way that we can. I thank you, Mayor and Town Council, for your time.
Thank you.
Okay, next up we have Ms. Allison Van Horn.
I think Allison is joining by phone.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Hi, Council and Mayor, thank you. Appreciate your time this evening. My name is Allison Van Horn, and I am a 16+ year resident and homeowner on James Island. I'm a parent of 2 children, elementary school age. And Karen touched on some of the environmental concerns of wireless radiation, but I wanted to use my time to touch on some of the human health aspects. We know wireless technology is radio waves. It's the same technology used in microwave ovens, the same frequency. We all understand that radio waves can cook a potato in several minutes, but we don't know much about ambient radiation, and that's the radiation that's all around us, emitting from cell phone towers that are in close proximity to homes and apartments or on top of schools. We also need to factor in the wireless technology being used by utilities, also in close proximity to our homes. Things like communicating meters used by Dominion and Charleston Water Systems. And then on top of that, cell phone usage, Wi-Fi tablets, our environment is beginning to resemble an unshielded microwave oven. And since radiation damage we know is cumulative in our bodies, we're not sure what the tipping point for health would be. And I think since published studies are showing that even at low levels, humans experience headaches, tinnitus, insomnia. Those are common symptoms of radio frequency exposure. We might be well on our way to the more serious diseases like cancers and infertility as exposure increases, especially with new technology like 5G. And I know in the news last week, hopefully some of you saw this. If not, please Google it. There was a story about the Havana syndrome, which has developed and is in line with this topic, but mysteriously 40 US diplomats in Cuba and China were experiencing neurological symptoms such as feeling pressure inside their heads and dizziness. Many have suffered longstanding debilitating neurological effects, and there was a long-awaited report that was just released this last week that cited medical evidence that the cause was likely caused by pulsed radio frequency energy or microwave radiation. So it was used as a military attack against our diplomats abroad. And this is the very same technology that is densely surrounding us with all of this new wireless infrastructure. These larger, taller, and higher powered cell towers have emerged everywhere. I'm sure you've noticed it. I have too. So I urge you, the council, to keep the citizens of James Island in mind when any permits for new cell tower infrastructure is submitted for your review. We simply do not know enough to say that exposure is safe. Nobody can say that. No scientist, no doctor, no industry person will say that it's safe. There are thousands of studies showing negative impact of varying degrees. So that's kind of what they fall back on, that, it's not going to kill you.
Thank you.
But
Thank you, Ms. Van Horn.
yes. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Next, we have Mr. Tom Sheridan.
I'd like to yield my time to other speakers tonight. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. All right, next up we have Ms. Susan Milliken.
Can y'all hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
My name is Susan Milliken. I live at 762 Fort Sumter Drive. I wanted to speak this evening because it came to my attention earlier in the week that the city is proposing to revise the urban growth boundary on James Island. This is a very serious issue. I would hope that the mayor and town council would look immediately at opposing this move. If you don't know about the urban growth boundary, it was actually drawn in the 90s by the county and the city, and it's rural outside the growth boundary and suburban inside. So we're looking at lower density, lighter uses outside the UGB and higher density commercial business uses, even industrial uses inside the UGB. The area that this would pertain to would be approximately the area from Bohemian Bull to Battery Island Drive. So that's a critical area where we don't want that urban growth boundary moved and have hotels, box stores, higher uses in that vicinity. So I hope that the town will oppose the movement of the urban growth boundary by the city of Charleston. Also, I'd like to urge you to please pass the climate resolution this evening. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Next up is Mr. Joe Walters.
Good evening, all. I hope everyone has a safe and happy holiday season. I'd like to speak tonight in reference to the climate resolution that directs the town staff, elected and appointed officials, to be educated on the latest climate science to address climate change within 120 days. What's the cost of the re-education for town staff, elected and appointed officials? How many hours will the re-education take? Will continuing education be required? Are there funds allocated in the current budget to re-educate town staff, elected and appointed officials? If not, then what specific line items in the budget will be reduced or eliminated to fund education to create this proposed plan? The 10-year climate action plan will undoubtedly be written to increase the ability of town council to change the behavior of James Island residents, property owners, and business owners. Once the plan is developed, it will be enforced by proposing and then acting ordinances. These new ordinances may restrict remodeling, prohibit redevelopment of existing real property, or remove permissible zoning uses from the ZLDR. For example, Ordinance 2020-02 is a new ordinance that passed March 19th of this year. Many listening tonight may not be familiar with this ordinance. This new ordinance, among other things, removed the permissible use from the ZLDR of selling watercraft. You know, motorboats, sailboats, kayaks, canoes, etc. This resolution is asking all James Islanders to support the development of a plan with no idea of the cost or how it will influence future ordinances which impact the residents, property owners, and business community. Thanks for your time this evening. I'd also like to thank you on behalf of the 103 James Islanders who signed the petition emailed to you today opposing the climate resolution and its amended versions. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. Next, we have Ms. Lisa Ross.
Good evening. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Thank you. I'd like to thank the mayor and town council members for this time. My name is Lisa Ross. I've lived on James Island over 20 years. I'm keenly aware of flooding issues as my house on Piccadilly Circle floods more often than not when we have a heavy rain. I'm also here as a professor at the College of Charleston, where I teach environmental psychology. We talk about climate change attitudes, and people's resistance to address climate change, amongst other topics in this class. Not only do 97% of scientists agree climate change is quote unquote real, but they agree it's caused by human activities. Just this past week, the United Nations Secretary General Antonio Guterres called upon national governments to declare a climate emergency and to develop and implement policies aimed at carbon neutrality. In other words, to slow down the process of climate change. More locally, Tony Bartolome on December 12th wrote a very thorough article in the Post and Courier about local flooding and how it's so linked to overdevelopment and loss of trees. I'm in full support of this climate resolution as a resident and as an environmental psychologist. I urge you to support it and to develop a climate action plan. This plan, as proposed, would include reducing fossil fuel consumption at Town Hall and in James Island Town vehicles. It would include expanding and improving public transportation, walking paths, bike paths. It would include protecting marshes and wetlands and expanding composting and recycling programs. It does not restrict the personal choices of any resident. We're facing a moment of truth. Yes, we do need to encourage individuals to make eco-friendly choices. However, we cannot rely on individual behaviors alone. We need bold leadership. We need policies. We need organizations, institutions, towns, cities, and states to protect the earth, to protect our safety, and to protect our health. You, James Island Town Council, can help lead the way. You, Town Council, can inspire other municipalities and our state to do something similar. You, Town Council, can adopt this resolution and be part of the solution. The problem is real and solutions are possible. Thank you for this time.
Thank you, Ms. Ross. You said your daughter would also like to speak. Is she there with you?
She is. Here she is.
Okay.
Hello, my name is Julia Ross and I'm 16 years old. And I'm asking you to think about the future generations who are about to inhabit this planet. There is no planet B, and the conspiracy theory saying we can just go to Mars, that we don't know if that's true yet. So I ask you to think about the future generations, to think about the people who will live on James Island and the rest of the world after you are gone, and who will be stuck with what you have left them. We as the younger generation don't want to have to move up to the mountains because no one did anything when the waters were rising. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have Dr. Stuart Weinberg.
Sorry, can you hear me now?
We can.
Okay, first of all, on the last night of Hanukkah, may I wish everyone a happy Hanukkah, a Merry Christmas, a happy Kwanzaa, and a happy New Year. I spoke to you guys a couple months ago regarding the sea level rise and climate change. I'm not going to repeat those comments, but it is really important. I mean, we just heard from a 16-year-old. I'm a little older than that, but that's the future of our planet. We need to listen to those individuals. I think you remember that I also serve as the vice chair for the City of Charleston's Resilience and Sustainability Advisory Committee. And we are right now creating a climate plan for the City of Charleston. So since even though I don't live in the town of James Island, but I live on James Island, tonight I am offering you, because I don't know if there's that many people with my experiences, I'm offering you free. I will work with you, the mayor, the town council, to create a climate plan for the town of James Island, totally gratis. If you feel you have to employ me, pay me $1 a year in order to do that. But I want to work with you because this can be done. We have Folly Beach just created a sustainability officer. So we have individuals that are doing that. And if you want a model or a role model right now, look at the Public Service District's new firehouse on Folly Road. What do they have that nothing else that is associated with James Island has? They have solar panels, and they have actually started to be the model, which each and every one of you sitting there tonight need to model from them. And I offer my assistance and my help in getting this done. It has to be done for that 16-year-old young lady that just spoke and everybody else, including my grandchildren. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay, Miss Charlene Johnson.
Good evening. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Great. My name is Charlene Johnson. I live and work here on James Island, and I'm here tonight to speak in support of Resolution 2020-20, the climate resolution. So climate change and the heat waves, sea level rise, more intense hurricanes and rain events that result from climate change are very real threats to our quality of life here in James Island. We've already experienced a ton of flooding in recent years, and climate change is setting the stage for flooding to occur more intensely and more frequently. I think we're all familiar with the expression, an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. Prevention is much more cost effective than cleaning up a mess after a problem has grown out of control. Climate change is accelerating and rapidly making its way out of control, which would not be good for our town. Climate change is a huge problem, and our town cannot solve this problem by ourselves, but we certainly can chip in with some common sense actions and hopefully help build momentum so that other towns and municipalities will join in to create an ever increasing positive impact. So what specifically can we do? There's a list in the resolution. I'm sure you, after learning more from the community, including the speaker who was just before me, can offer options. We can take suggestions from other places that are working and create our own options and create leadership here in James Island as well. So a couple things that we can do pretty directly. We need to reduce the burning of fossil fuels by increasing energy efficiency and transitioning to alternative energy sources such as solar power, which fortunately is getting more and more affordable every year. So these do not have to be costly solutions, and they are very likely to be much more cost effective as prevention than dealing with the flooding that comes if we don't act. We also need to store carbon, and we can do that in plants, both by protecting our existing marshes, which are beautiful and have many benefits, and our existing trees, and planting more trees, which not only help store carbon, but help pull water out of the soil and address flooding as well, as we saw in a recent Post and Courier article. This resolution is a good first step on the path towards the town of James Island learning about how to counter climate change and identifying cost-effective steps that we can take to ensure a better future for our town and its residents. I thank you for your time, and I hope that all of you will be voting in support of this resolution tonight.
Thank you. Okay. All right, Miss Emma Abrams.
Hello and good evening. My name is Emma Abrams. I'm 16 years old and I've lived here on James Island for my entire life. I am here tonight on behalf of the James Island Charter High School's Environmental Sustainability Club in support of the climate resolution. As we all know, climate change is a viable threat to our home of James Island and our way of life. I could sit here and regurgitate facts and frightening statistics, but I think all of us know how serious of an issue this is. Even as 16 and 17-year-olds, the members of James Island Charter High School Sustainability Club have already seen the effects of climate change here on James Island. This resolution would seek to create a 10-year climate action plan. As I'm thinking about applying to college, one question that gets asked a lot is, where do I picture myself in 5 to 10 years? In 5 to 10 years, my peers and I will be finishing college and perhaps returning home to James Island. In 10 years, will I have a job I can't drive to because the flooding is so bad? When I'm driving down Harborview Road in 10 years, will I see a beautiful marsh or an ecosystem sickened by continual overflow of the sewage system? Will the cost of flood insurance make it impossible to buy a house for myself in 10 years? Cities along the East Coast from Miami to New York are taking climate change seriously and are planning for resiliency. People of my generation will not return to a community that has chosen to ignore the real and consequential impacts of climate change. This is about jobs, this is about quality of life, and this is about sustaining a community. And for these reasons, it is absolutely essential that the climate resolution is passed. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Jennifer Tyrell.
Hi, everyone. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Great. I want to thank you for taking time to listen to everyone speak tonight, and thank you to all the other speakers for supporting this climate resolution. And I want to thank you for making our island a tree city, which is really wonderful. Considering this resolution tonight shows that the town is using science and technology to address the threats to our island and our way of life. I ask that you please take in counsel and advice from professionals to assess sustainable solutions for development and protecting our island from the effects of climate change. Climate change, as you have heard tonight, is an overwhelming threat that is quickly approaching the point of no return. Failing to act in our communities to curb this threat is grossly negligent and dangerous. James Island was founded as a community who lived off the land and from the sea, and now the sea is encroaching and threatening our at-risk communities and historic communities and our way of life. As the president of the Charleston Audubon and Natural History Society, I represent a large group of members who value and treasure the natural habitats, landscape, and flora and fauna that call our island home. According to an Audubon study, climate change, or Climate by Degrees, says that 2/3 of our nation's bird species are threatened by climate change. Birds are strong indicators of environmental health, and when we see that we've lost 3 billion birds since 1970, it's obvious that there are major environmental issues affecting our wildlife and community, revealing many areas where we can improve to restore habitat and protect our homes from storm and flooding events. Using natural infrastructure, native plants and landscaping, renewable energy, improving public transportation, and developing our community in a sustainable manner will mean the success and survival of our land and our island for the future. Inaction now will lead to irreversible, devastating effects and threatening our way of life. We need to be on the right side of history and take steps to ready our island to face these threats and build a resilient James Island so that our children and generations of families who call James Island home can continue to do so for the future. And one thing I'd like to add to that, which a few other folks have added as well, is I would be happy to aid in any of the plans coming up as the president of Charleston Audubon, and we do a lot of resilient work in the state level of Audubon. So please let us know if we can be of any service. Thank you very much for your time, and I appreciate your consideration.
Thank you. Okay, Jen Wright.
How about now? Can you hear me okay?
We can hear you.
Sorry about that. Okay. So good evening, and thank you for the opportunity to speak tonight about the climate resolution under consideration. It's been wonderful to hear from so many people. My name is Jen Wright. I am a professor at the College of Charleston and a mother of two, and we've lived on James Island since 2008. At the September council meeting, I spoke about the research that I do on moral exemplars and heroes, and how taking steps necessary to protect our families and island from the impacts of climate change will require heroism, a willingness to do something because it's right and because it's necessary, even if it's potentially unpopular. And I think the Post and Courier's recent comic, Flood Woman versus Climate Doom, really helps to drive that point home. Not only do our imaginations need heroes, but our imagining needs to become heroic. But now I'd like to talk for just a moment about something else, which is what it's like to teach students about climate change. We've heard from a couple students. Whether it's my Psych of War class or my Psychology of Social Change, I spend a lot of time talking about hard topics, genocide, poverty, the fight for civil rights. But one of the hardest topics to talk about in a way is climate change. It involves not just talking about something that's happened, but about something that is happening. And it's not just happening to other people, it's happening to them, right under their noses in plain sight, something that could very well have significant and potentially permanent impacts on their life trajectories. All this, and yet the adults around them, including the ones that care about those life trajectories, don't seem to be doing that much about it. And so every semester I have to watch as this knowledge confuses, disorients, and angers them. Why hasn't this been taken more seriously? Why haven't major steps already been taken? And what are they as individuals, not even out of college yet, supposed to do about it? It can be overwhelming. My job is always to help them work through the overwhelm by widening their perception of possibilities and instructing them in the ways of grounded optimism. As huge and hopeless as the issue may seem, we work together to embrace the truth that taking meaningful action to address climate is not only critical, but also possible. Which brings me back to tonight. The James Island Town Council passing tonight's resolution would provide my students, many of which are James Islanders, and our James Island youth as a whole, including those that we heard from tonight, much needed evidence that this is true. It doesn't need to be big and it doesn't need to be perfect. It just needs to happen. I look forward to you making it so. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. Okay. Mr. Gary Smith.
Hello. Can you hear me?
We can.
Great. Thank you for the opportunity. I wanted to thank the mayor and town council for all your service. That's probably not expressed enough, but also just to say, as I'm sure you realize, your number one responsibility is safeguarding residents and their properties. And so I can't think of anything that falls into that category more than this would. The idea that, and safeguarding tax money too, that if we continue to have to spend the money it's going to take to repair the damage being done by the rising sea levels, building the walls, pump stations, it's really not proper stewarding of public taxpayers' money if we're not doing anything to address the root cause of that. Just to be spending endlessly on one side of that equation and doing nothing to solve the problem would be really improper stewarding of taxpayers' money. So I'm a homeowner on James Island, and I'm really hoping that you'll take that responsibility deeply to heart in making this decision. And just finally, that the idea of that coastal communities like ours wouldn't take these actions really ensures that inland communities that we are counting on to partner with in this necessary step won't. How could they possibly be expected to step up and join this partnership that's going to be so necessary if the communities that are the most vulnerable can't even bother to take that step? So I really hope you take that to heart, and you know, just realizing that we can't keep ignoring what the best experts in the world have overwhelmingly given us consensus on. We don't do that with any other part of science. We don't ignore, you know, the time when the eclipse we're told is going to occur. We don't ignore our doctors when they tell us we have cancer. We don't ignore them when they tell us what the weather is going to be tomorrow and to prepare for a Category 4 hurricane. To pick one facet of science to say, oh no, I don't believe that, would just be insanity in an existential moment like this. So thank you again for all your time, and really hope you take that to heart in making the vote tonight. Really appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Belvin Olasov?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes.
Well, I'd like to give a warm hello and a happy holidays to James Island Town Council. I'm Belvin Olasov, the co-founder and co-chair of the Charleston Climate Coalition. As you may have noticed, we've tried to take an active role in helping push this resolution forward in the past few months. And I just wanted to make it very clear that we are a grassroots local climate activism and advocacy group. We're not even a registered nonprofit at this point, consisting of nothing but Low Country residents volunteering time and energy to act on the climate crisis. And people are dedicating all this time and energy because we're really concerned about the future of our planet and thus the Low Country. To me, the decision before you is very simple. The climate crisis may be in early days, but it has arrived. The 5 hottest years ever recorded in human history were the past 5 years. This hurricane season broke the record for most hurricanes ever in one season. Sea level rise and thus flooding is of peak concern to James Islanders for a very good reason. The resolution before you simply recognizes the threat climate change poses to James Island and resolves to put together appropriate actions through the town. If you, members of council, as individuals recognize the threat of climate change, then passing this resolution seems to me the most straightforward way possible of addressing it as a town. And I can assure you, climate change is not going anywhere. It's only going to become more and more relevant to our daily lives, to our discourse, to our foremost concerns. And if you were to pass this resolution today, I think the people of James Island will appreciate your initiative and foresight for years to come. I'd like to echo others who have spoken tonight, saying that we at the Charleston Climate Coalition would be very happy to lend whatever help and support and pro bono labor that would be needed, just as we have to push this forward, just as we have in other areas of the Low Country, because we are very concerned about the future of our planet and we want to help however we can. So you will not be without allies in forming the Climate Action Plan if you were to move forward. Thank you so much for considering.
Thank you. Ms. Diane Shields?
Can you hear me? Hello.
Yes.
Oh, good. Hello, Mayor Woolsey and council persons. Thank you for the opportunity to speak. I'm going to keep my remarks brief here. I don't want to repeat what I've said before. I do want to say, I do think, and everyone, of course, believes that keeping the planet and the environment healthy is important. But I think people have different ways that they would go about doing that. So I oppose the climate change resolution as was written, as I saw written. I don't know if anything has changed with that, but I did want to say that I join a lot of the James Island residents. I sent you an email today showing 200 comments from the nextdoor.com, a community website, all written this week. And they were about 5-to-1 response against the climate resolution. I loved Councilor Milliken's ideas of victory gardens last week, composting, and all these things he said in the September meeting. I love the idea of making James Island a tree city and doing bike paths, all of these things that are real kind of grassroots level, that efforts that affect our own community. What I have a little bit of a problem with is when you call something an emergency, it gives you carte blanche to do all sorts of things, and maybe to put burdens on taxpayers, charge fines, change what business restrictions, things like that, without people's consent. Especially right now when everyone has been hurt so badly by this pandemic, where people have lost jobs, homes, the families have broken up. I've seen a lot of stuff happen here, and it's very sad. So I guess what I'm saying is that resolutions, sometimes something like this, if it's really a strong mandate and money is being spent out of the taxpayer's pocket, it would do very little for climate change if you look at the whole country or China or the world. But it might have a huge impact on taxes and restrictions. And it's the agendas like this are why people like Tesla can't get out of California fast enough. So having come from California and seeing kind of the craziness that happened there, I love James Island, but I want to keep it the same. So I'm just saying, let's stay as free as possible if we can. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have Kelly Thorbalson.
Good evening, Kelly Thorvalson, Conservation Programs Manager for the South Carolina Aquarium and resident at 1016 Aruba Circle. Thank you for allowing public comment tonight around the climate resolution for James Island. There's been a documented foot of sea level rise in the Charleston Harbor and surrounding waterways in the last 80+ years. And we're currently experiencing monthly king tides over 7 feet, up from an average of 5.5 feet. And when those tides are this big, the rivers are literally spilling into roadways or backing up through storm drains, making many roads impassable throughout the county. Each year, we break new records with these tidal floods that often occur with no rain in sight. Because the rate of sea level rise has increased 4 times over the last decade, we'll potentially see another foot of sea level rise in the next 25 years, which will not only put wildlife and clean water at risk, but many of our homes and businesses will be underwater as well. Higher sea levels lessen our marshes' ability to take on floodwaters from increased rainfall that we're experiencing, especially the frequent rain bombs that release a deluge of water in such a short period of time. Negative impacts of climate change have fortunately become one of the most frequently discussed environmental topics of our time. It affects water, wildlife, wild places, and people. It's important that municipal leaders take on this issue to ensure the safety and health of their constituents. I hope that you, the leaders of this beautiful island community, will lead the way. And I'd like to just finish by saying, I just finished a Zoom presentation on climate change and sea level rise for teens all over South Carolina. And at the end of the presentation, one of the questions was, is there hope? It sounds like it's a tough scenario. And my answer is always yes, there's a ton of hope, but it takes action. There are solutions, but we have to move. And one of the action items I gave them was to make their voices heard in local municipalities. And I'm just so pleased and grateful for the young folks that spoke this evening. Thank you for all you do for James Island.
Thank you. That is all I have signed up to speak. If there is anyone else on the call with us tonight that would like to speak, please use the raise your hand function. Okay, I believe that's all we have.
Well, thank you very much for everyone who came and commented this evening. Our next item on the agenda is our consent agenda. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
So that's Councilman Milliken moved. Is there a second? Councilman Mullinex seconds. Would you please call the roll, Ashley?
Councilman Bowles, Councilman
Y'all
Bowles,
hear me?
yes.
Vote is yes. Sorry, my audio is messed up over here. I apologize, but yes.
Councilwoman Mignano,
Yes.
Councilman Milliken,
Yes.
Councilman Mullinax,
Yes.
Mayor Woolsey.
Yes. All right, so now let's go to the information reports. Next, we have our finance report. Are you going to give that, Ashley, or is Meryl here?
Meryl is here.
Meryl?
Give her just a minute.
Now can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Under revenue, franchise fees of $55,000 is made up of $37,000 from Comcast and $18,000 from Bell South. Lost funds are for October. Under miscellaneous, these are all state reimbursements. $315,000 is for the hazard mitigation. $11,000 is PARD reimbursement, and $3,200 is emergency management reimbursement. Under administration, the almost $11,000 in insurance is workman's comp. Under public works, under projects, $4,000 is Regatta and $9,000 is Renwood. You will see under capital projects, under the hazard mitigation, the other side of that reimbursement. Let's see. If you look closely on a line item, it says island-wide drainage study. There's $3,600. That's actually invoices that came from the county that were from the first quarter of 2019. Under hospitality tax, it says promotional grants, the $4,250. That was a portion of the community service grants. And the $2,000 under community events were the James Island County Park lights. I think that's all.
All right, are there any questions for Ms. Rowe? Hearing none, thank you. And so next we'll go to the administrator's report. Ashley?
Okay. Little update on our streetscape lighting project. You probably all have seen that underway. They've started with the boring and a lot of the posts have been installed along Dills Bluff and part of camp. Our brick grant for the Green Hill Drainage Project will be submitted tomorrow. Our North Styles Hazard Mitigation Project, demolition of that home and turning it back into green space. I have the date wrong on my report, but those bids are actually due back on December 21st. And we did have about 3 contractors that showed up for that pre-bid. Let's see. The shed install date at Pinckney Park is scheduled for the first week of January, and you've all been out there lately. The concrete pad is already in place. I've attached for you all to my report the final approved plan for Brantley Park that has received the permits. And the anticipated bidding is what will take place in January once those construction documents are finalized. Attached a stakeholder update to the James Island Arts and Cultural Center. As you can see from the photos, it's moving along, and we actually had a progress meeting today. They won't be in there working for the next couple of weeks for the holiday, but they are on schedule. And VC3 will actually be in there during that time installing some of the cabling. And Councilman Milliken asked for a few updates. I wanted to make you all aware. The old subway building, is scheduled to be demolished actually by Chase Bank. they have applied for a zoning permit, and they plan to demolish that building along with the Pizza Hut building once their approvals are in place. A few other updates: the Dills Bluff sidewalk project, phase 3. A little hold up there with the permitting, so we may have to go to OCRM for a permit. We're hoping to avoid that, but there is a little place where we do get pretty close to the marsh, so the engineers are working through that with DOT, and but we do plan to have for you next month's meeting a resolution, TST funding resolution to match that project. And then the Regatta Road sidewalk project is also moving forward. They are kind of complete with their design, and the next step is meeting with the residents. So hopefully in January we can schedule some sort of neighborhood meeting to go over those plans and get the feedback before it comes to you all for approval. And that's all I have.
All right, thank you. Any questions for the town administrator?
Yes, I have a question. First of all, I want to thank Ashley for giving us the information from the PSD audits regarding the tax credits. I have a better idea of how they do their assessment now, so that was very helpful. So thank you for that. That's from last month. Also, I was also wondering what the zoning is for the old Subway and Pizza Hut, and whether or not it will need to change to have the bank.
It is community commercial, so it will not need to change.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions?
I do.
Yes, Councilwoman Mignogna.
Thank you. So since I missed last month's meeting due to recovering from surgery, I'm a little confused. My last I heard, Corky's owned the old Subway, so I guess they sold it to Chase. And then what happens with the part that we own?
So we still have our easement, and they're aware of our easement and have to accommodate it because it's part of the deed restriction. I'm not completely clear if they're still under contract with Corky's or if that sale has been finalized or not. I think it would, normally it's probably not finalized until all their approvals are in place, but I'm not exactly sure.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
One other question.
Councilman Milliken.
Thank you. Did we lose our parking spots?
No.
Okay, great. Thank you.
No, we'll have parking and they'll have to abide by the hours of operation.
Okay, very good. Thank you.
Any other questions? All right, hearing none, let's go on to the Public Works report. Is Mark is going to give that?
Can you all hear me?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Good evening, everyone. In November, there were 2 new requests for service. One was drainage related, and staff has responded to all those requests. Staff participated in another planning meeting for traffic issues related to the Holiday Festival of Lights at the James Island County Park. And I don't know the results yet, but they were doing traffic counts and a study on that this past Saturday. Staff also participated virtually in the quarterly SCASM meeting. That's the South Carolina Association of Stormwater Managers. Monthly Stormwater Managers meeting was held by teleconference. Staff participated also in a meeting of the James Island Creek Water Quality Task Force and a meeting of the local emergency planning committee. Staff met with engineers from Thomas and Hutton to review the progress on our asset management software system, which is going very well. And this is something that I'm really proud of, because in the age of COVID, we weren't able to do the things that we wanted to do, which was have in-person training and stuff like that for the public. But staff with council members Mignano and Moenax, thank you both, hosted a virtual workshop for low impact development practices that was presented by Ken Morganello of Clemson Extension. And the public was invited. We had, I think, about 17 people there. And it was all virtual. So staff cleaned 10 signs in November and installed 2 new stop signs and 3 new street name signs. And also, since it is the fall, we've been cutting vegetation out of the way at intersections to improve driver vision. And that's all I have for today.
All right, thank you. Is there any questions for Ms. Johnson?
Yes, item number 9 on the report there, Mark. Is that Dills Bluff Road?
Which item is that?
Item number 9. SCDOT working with CWS on the 24-inch water main.
Mark, I think we added that update after your report.
Oh, I can speak to that. Yeah, and y'all probably will be getting, if you haven't already, getting questions about that. All right. So as we know, we've asked, and they said they would, DOT to put in an additional 48-inch drainage pipe outfall right there where the steel plates are now. That's where they had an outfall already. And the reason we asked them to is because one of their original 36-inch pipes was metal and it failed and was causing a problem with the roadway. Well, they agreed to that. We had a pre-construction meeting. We had the locates out there and all like that. And when they began construction, they noticed that the water main was actually on the other side of the road, the inland side. And CWS identified it as a 24-inch main that actually feeds all the way to Sullivan's Island. So work had to stop. They could not risk having that collapse. What the engineers are doing now is coming up with a plan to support that 24-inch water main. And what it is they're going to put a steel beam, a 60-foot steel beam in there underneath the water main to hold that up, because that is the weak part of that whole causeway. If we did have, a large storm surge or something, that's where it would wash out. But they have been able to put a 42-inch additional drainage pipe under there. That's all that will fit. What they're working on now is to actually complete the work. And I've been told that it's going to take several weeks. They're trying to work on weekends. And of course, we have the holidays here and stuff like that. But when the plates become dislodged, as they were today, I let DOT know. They send their ready crew out there and fix it. So you can explain to people that it's a work in progress. It's something that needs to be done. DOT's on top of it. And it's all because of a water main that nobody knew was there.
Well, thank you, Mark. I am a little bit concerned about the mobility of those steel plates that are on Dills Bluff Road. And if there's any way that DOT could stabilize those better and maybe make it a little less vigorous when you go over, that would be welcome. I'm just concerned that the ruts on either side of those steel plates are getting kind of deep and the plates are moving. So if they could stabilize those, I think that would help out a lot.
I share your concerns. And like I said, I let DOT know immediately, and they send their crew out there to replace them. After a few of these, they're going to get really tired of me talking to them about it. So I'm sure they'll come up with some way to make it safer or hurry up their work schedule.
All right. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
All right, any other questions? Okay, hearing none, let's go on to the Island Sheriff's Patrol report.
Deputy King is here with us tonight.
Hello, everybody. Can you hear me okay?
Mhm.
Sergeant James expresses his sorrow that he is not able to attend the meeting this evening. He did ask me to go over four specific things, so I'll start with those first before I get to my stats. First is the porch pirate crime that was happening within the town and also the city's jurisdiction that has been solved. Detective Jacko works for us in our criminal investigations division, worked along with the city, and they collaborated. They actually identified a suspect, they interviewed him, and he was charged accordingly. So that crime has been solved. As far as the armed robberies that happened at the Little Cricket on Harborview near Quail, and then the Circle K on Folly, those crimes have been solved also. The one on Quail and Harborview, I and a few other sheriff's deputies responded to an address on Williams Road after a tip from a citizen, and we were able to recover the vehicle used in the armed robbery. The city came out, they took custody of the vehicle and they processed it. They were able to identify some suspects from that. And in return, the suspects were able to provide information about the armed robbery at the Circle K. Definitely related. Those crimes are now at ease, and those suspects were charged accordingly. One of them was also charged with kidnapping for the way that they handled the clerks at the store. As far as the homicide that occurred on George Griffith, Sergeant James wanted me to mention that deputies and people from the town all attended a vigil that occurred last night. In the pouring rain, everybody walked from, I believe it started at the Walmart, and they walked to the site where the homicide took place. They're still investigating. There have been some leads that have come in and that developed some suspects, and they're still working those leads to try and get probable cause to make an arrest for that murder. The fourth thing was the issue at the laundromat and that shopping center with the homeless that have been harassing customers trying to conduct business in the shopping center. Myself, I was actually over there a little while ago on a call. We placed several of them on trespass notice. They've all been made aware that they can't harass people. If they're going to be there and conduct business, that's fine. But if they're harassing people, asking for money, or they're trying to sleep inside a business, obviously that's a different story. We placed another one on trespass today. One that was already placed on trespass was issued a citation for coming back and sleeping at the laundromat. If he does go back again, then he will be taken to jail. He was made aware of that. All of them been made aware of that. We've been compiling a list of each one that gets cited or put on notice, so we can keep track of all that. As far as the stats from me personally, this doesn't include all the other deputies that work for the town off duty. For the month of November, I had a pretty busy month. I had 52 contacts total for the month. One of those was a GSC arrest, felony arrest. I had 2 magistrate level courtesy summons arrests. I stopped 46 cars for violations, issued 6 citations, 44 warnings. I had a collision report that I did, and I wrote 4 reports for residents for certain things. I responded to a burglary that occurred on Robert E. Lee Boulevard, where the suspects actually entered the residence while the residents were still at home. It was a mother and her children. She confronted them and they ran out the door. I'm still working on that case. I'm working on the Goodwill because the suspects went to try and drop some of the items stolen off at the Goodwill. I'm still working on getting that video evidence from them. I had a reckless driving arrest from an 18-year-old girl that was driving drunk, and she had some marijuana in the car. I actually went to court for her Tuesday, and she pleaded guilty to everything. Judge found her, accepted her plea, pleaded guilty. I responded to 973 Doe's Bluff on the 30th of November it came out as a welfare check of an individual stumbling in the street, and then another call came in that he was trying to break into some vehicles. I wasn't far from there. I responded. I was able to intercept him. While dealing with him, I noticed that he was under the influence of narcotics, and I called for EMS. No sooner than EMS got there, he fell out and went unconscious. They transported him. I followed them to the hospital, and I was there for several hours before they were able to get him to be revived. He did survive, and he was charged accordingly for his crime. He had a significant amount of Xanax bars on him that he was using, and he indicated he was planning on trying to sell. So there will be none of those Xanax bars on the streets of the town. I am working with that individual. He has identified some specific targets that are in this area that are selling drugs, so we're going to work and try and take them down. And our average response time for me personally, according to the CAD, for any emergency call was within 1 to 5 minutes, and any non-emergency call was within 5 to 10 minutes. So, and that's what I have for this evening.
Thank you, Deputy King. Any questions for Deputy King? Okay, well, hearing none, let's go on to request for approval. The first one is the Repair Care handicap ramp. Would you explain that a bit, Ashley?
Yes. So this handicap ramp for a disabled veteran has actually already been completed. The office manager at Habitat had forgotten about our new $2,000 threshold. So when I received the invoice, I let her know that before we could pay it, I needed to come to council for its approval.
So is there a motion in favor of approving the expenditure for the handicap ramp?
So moved.
Okay, so we'll count that as Councilman Milliken in first and Mullinex second. Okay, any discussion or questions? Hearing none, Ashley, would you call the roll?
Councilman Bowles,
Yes.
Councilwoman Mignano,
Yes.
Thank you.
Councilman Milliken,
Yes.
Councilman Mullinex,
Yes.
Mayor Woolsey.
Yes. All right, thank you. That passes. Let's go to the Repair Care roof replacement. Would you speak to that, Ashley?
Yeah, this home is the price tag on this repair is $12,000. It's a little bit more than our normal roof repair projects. The house is a larger home. It's a brick home. It has some brickwork that needs to be fixed on the chimney. An elderly lady lives here. There are currently 3 leaks in there. I did ask or request that Habitat try to match that with us as they did one of the previous roofs that cost about this much. They have expended all of their repair care funds this year because they also have funds that they use in unincorporated Charleston County. So they weren't able to match us. You know, with the project that y'all approved just now, before that, we've spent about $11,000 in repair care this year, 35,000 remaining in the budget. And there is some delay. They're not doing any interior work right now because of COVID. So they will be continuing to focus on roofing projects that they can contract out.
Well, is there a motion to approve this roof repair?
I move to approve.
Okay, thank you. Is there a second? The Councilman Mignano moved and Mullinex seconded. Any discussion? Councilman Bowles.
Yes.
Oh, well, we hadn't called for a vote yet. So I was asking if you had discussion. If there's no discussion, let's go ahead and, Councilman Milliken, let's go ahead and call for vote then.
Councilman Bowles,
Yes.
Councilwoman Mignano,
Yes.
Councilman Milliken,
Yes.
Councilman Mullinex,
Yes.
Mayor Woolsey.
Yes. So that passes. Next, we're going to go to purchase of radar signs for Fort Johnson at Lighthouse Boulevard.
I'm so sorry. Is anyone else having feedback? I'm getting like double audio. Is anyone else getting that, or it's just me?
We're hearing a little of that here. So, but not right, well, I don't hear it right now. So Ashley, would you like to speak to the radar signs?
Yes, and I was just checking. Sometimes I unmute or don't have the live stream to YouTube on mute, and that will cause that, but it is muted. I just wanted to double check that. So these two radar signs at the Fort Johnson, so you've all already approved this project, and this project was funded through CTC this year. This is the quote. Mark sought out 3 quotes, and this one was the best price, had the breakaway poles, and also this company we use on the movable one we have now, and so it would use the same software. So once we approve this purchase, before we actually purchase them, we will go ahead and submit the encroachment permit to DOT. And part of that, they'll need the specs from this company on the actual signs.
All right, is there a motion to approve?
Make that motion.
So Councilman Mullinex votes to approve. Is there a second?
Second.
Councilman Milliken seconds. Any further discussion? Hearing none, Ashley, would you please call the roll?
Councilman Bowles,
Yeah, yes.
Councilwoman Mignano,
Yes.
Councilman Milliken,
Yes.
Councilman Mullinex,
Yes.
Mayor Woolsey.
Yes. So that passes. So next we go to scope and fee on the grant for consulting for the James Island Arts and Community Center in Brantley Park. Would you explain that, Ashley?
Yes, and also you all haven't met Patrick Patterson yet. He is on the call tonight and one of the consultants that you all had awarded to. So in the packet, I provided the report that him and his firm provided, looking at multiple grants that we could seek out, and kind of going through that list with him. Some we're already kind of looking at, including the one he has listed about Charleston County Community Services, something we're already working on. There were 2 that we found really interesting. One was for Regions Bank, I believe. It was the Regions Bank grant. We only have one bank in the town's jurisdiction. There's Patrick. It was formerly a BB&T, now it's Regions. And so they have a foundation grant for economic development, a lot of areas that would really serve the Arts and Cultural Center. So that was one we really wanted to look at. And then the other one, TD Bank, while there's not one in the town's jurisdiction, there are, I'm sure, many in the city's jurisdiction. And, they have something that we kind of thought in talking through it would fit Brantley Park well, because of the wellness aspect, livability, bikeability, and the whole Rethink Folly Road initiative, and really getting some funds in order to build that boardwalk. And I will, do you have any specific questions for Patrick and his report?
Well, let's see if there's a motion to approve. Is there a motion to approve?
I'll make that motion.
Okay, so Councilman Milliken made the motion. Is there a second? And Councilman Mullinex seconds. Okay, so any discussion or questions for Mr. Patterson or for Ashley?
Question.
Councilman Bowles.
Thank you. Are y'all able to hear me? Okay. Audio's been tonight. My question is this.
But there is a bit of an echo.
I'm going to try to hold the phone right here. my question is this. It's like we're voting to approve spending money, the grant writing. Am I clear that we're not deciding at this time what we would spend any of the funds we might receive on? For example, Brantley Park was listed, and as well as the cultural center. Does that make sense?
Speak to that.
Yeah, it does. You know, not necessarily the first step, and Patrick, maybe you can talk about this more. Really, the first step is, you know, reaching out to these folks to see what is the best fit.
I could add a comment if you want me to also.
Yeah.
Okay, sure. Good evening, everybody. Happy holidays. I'll say two things that is really important, I think, in the process. One is, as we've identified, probably 12 different funding sources that would fund in James Island, is to A, secure that this is an option, and then B, to identify what is the need. And so to your point, Councilman Bowles, it really is to decide now that we may move forward, what is the most urgent need, whether that's the Cultural Arts Center or some other local program for some population in the town. So.
Yeah, and I think.
Go ahead, Ashley, sorry. No, go ahead.
You know, I think the Arts and Cultural Center one, I'm not sure, you know, the Regions Bank in their parameters, maybe what else our need could be there. And on the TD Bank one, I think that would, you know, maybe the boardwalk is not the best fit there. And so I think that's kind of where we, you know, when we have communications with these institutions, and let them know our needs, you know, certainly drainage, resiliency, all of those needs. We're working on a BRIC grant now, as you know, for a big drainage project. So I think communicating those needs, like Patrick said, with the funding agency, and then kind of let them maybe help guide us on what we should apply for.
So I think one thing it's important to understand, once we get to the point of applying for a grant, the grant will be for a specific purpose. You know, no one's going to give us money and then we'll decide how to spend it.
Correct.
So, you know, so if we apply for a grant and it's granted to us, it will come back to council to approve the expenditure of funds, especially as generally is the case, there'll be some match of town funds. So we'll come back, but when we do the application, we do have to apply for a specific purpose.
I have a question.
Councilman Mignano.
So as far as the Brantley Park grant, so if we apply, do we and we receive the money, can we then decide what we're going to do for improvements for that park? Or would we use our what was originally presented, October, I think?
Well, so with Brantley Park, you know, we do have the funds budgeted for the phase 1, which doesn't include anything with the dock. It really just includes the parking and the pervious trail, but is in the drainage. But as far as what we do with the dock, maybe we don't build a dock, maybe we do kayak launches, something like that, maybe we do a floating dock. Yes, that would definitely come back to council. As far as, yes, the project itself, and then like the mayor said, any sort of match would need to come back to council.
Thank you.
Any further questions or
Yes, so have we, sorry, have we asked the city to collaborate with us on any of these improvements to Brantley Park?
Yes.
Yes.
And what did they say?
They are well, so if you're referring to, I talked to Councilwoman Jackson about the dock, and she's open to seeking funds to help with that project, but that's pretty premature at this time.
This is Bull speaking. I would offer up the Cultural Arts Center is probably more relevant right now than Brantley Park be, and I would be more interested in the grant services, kind of focusing on the Culture Center. So I think might work for that is for me to make a motion that we split this effort and vote solely on it. So like my motion would be that we divide the grant writing, efforts towards the cultural center, and then also separately towards Brantley Park.
Okay, so you want to vote whether we're approving paying Mr. Patterson to write grants on the Arts Center, and then we'll have a separate vote to determine whether he would also could write grants on Brantley Park. I think that I'll rule it out. That's, if there's no objection, we'll go ahead and vote on those two things actually separately. Ashley, does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
So we'll, any further discussion of the, we'll start with the Arts and Cultural Center. Any further discussion of the Arts and Cultural Center approval of grant writing?
One comment on Mr. Patterson's scope and fee is also work to establish a separate nonprofit for the town, sort of like a Parks and Recreation Foundation or something like that, that would help us in applying for some of these more some of these foundation type grants. Patrick, do you have anything to add on that?
Yeah, I'm just going to say, I think in you guys' case, you're limiting your opportunities for funding. Most of them will ask you for an IRS designated letter that says you're a nonprofit. We don't have that. And so having a sister nonprofit, we have a couple of clients that are municipalities that we've done that for. And it's been a wonderful addition to allowing you to have more access to grant opportunities. Some of those are even from corporations that would donate more likely to a nonprofit than a corporation. So just want to add that context. And then I want to add to Ashley, when it comes to some of the grants and funders, I've heard a couple different things that are high interest. A lot of what we're going to do is going to be determined by what the funder will allow us to apply for. And so it could shift based on the specific funder. Some will fund capital projects, some will only fund programming. And so I think we need to be considerate of what they will allow in each of these applications.
Yes, I have a question. And I'm not sure, if folks here know the answer to it. I was under the understanding that James Island Arts was a nonprofit and has that status already. Would it be possible to use that mechanism to apply for some of these grant opportunities, or would it have to be more specifically through the town? I'm guessing I'm asking, if we already got the wheel, why do we build another one?
Well, I know the art. So are you saying the Arts or James Island Pride?
James Island Arts.
Yeah, and they're sort of separate from the town now. Okay. Whereas they once were under our umbrella, now they have separated out. So I think I would feel more comfortable having our own, especially when signing the forms or any of that, the financial stuff, falling under the town and not that separate organization.
I understand.
potentially could add myself or someone else as like a signer or something, but I think it would be better to be separate.
So, the Arts Council, I think, very much supports our Arts and Cultural Center, and perhaps it could play some role, but I think it's important to understand that the Arts and Cultural Center also has other purposes besides just the Arts Council. Particularly, our history museum element of the project. Any other questions or comments? Okay, so we'll go ahead and bring to a vote whether we approve having Mr. Patterson seek grants relating to the James Island Arts Council. Please call the roll, Ashley.
Councilman Bowles,
Yes.
Councilwoman Mignano,
Yes.
Councilman Milliken,
Yes.
Councilman Melanax,
Yes.
Mayor Woolsey.
Yes. And so now we'll discuss whether we will approve Mr. Patterson seeking grants regarding Brantley Park.
Councilman.
Mr. Patterson, what would be the extra expense on our end if you seek grants for Brantley Park or other green space projects in the town?
Thanks for the question, Mayor. We have a pretty standard rate that we applied for in our application to you guys. So if it's a foundation grant, there's a solid rate. There are some government grants, federal government that is, and the rate's a little bit different, but it's about on par with what we have in the application right now. So I think for the two, Regions Bank and TD Bank, they're $1,000 each, which those are corporate grants. And then the federal grants, there's a little bit more of a price tag for each one of those.
And just on another note, Patrick and I went through his funding list, and many of them I think would be really great for us to go after, but a lot of them are kind of timing issues. And especially when you look at the programming, especially on the arts and cultural side, I think we're not there yet. But once we get that center up and running, I think there's a lot more we can seek as far as the programming side of that space.
All right, is there any other questions or comments or discussion? All right, now we'll bring to a vote whether Mr. Patterson, we will have him seek grants for green space or regarding Brantley Park. Would you please call the roll?
Councilman Bowles,
No, ma'am.
Councilwoman Mignano,
I'm sorry, just to be clear, we're voting on the Arts and Cultural Center grant, is that correct?
No.
We passed that already, so now we're voting on the second part for seeking grants to help with funding for Brantley Park.
I apologize, long day. My vote is no.
Councilman Milliken,
Yes.
Councilman Melanax,
Yes.
Mayor Woolsey.
Yes, so that passes. All right, so both parts of that passes. Let's go to
Mayor Woolsey, if you could also, I'm sorry, none of those included the scope and fee.
yeah, that was included in the first one.
I'm sorry. Okay.
Or is there any objection to that? I understood that we had to vote separately on Brantley Park because there was some opposition to seeking funding for Brantley Park, and it passed. Next, we have the street light conversion to LED. Would you explain that?
Yes, and also have Mr. Robert Garvin with Dominion on the line. So they came to us a few months back with their conversion program, moving our street lights from the high pressure sodium to LED. I included the presentation to you all. We have about 800 streetlights. It would be about a $600 a month savings. It's a 10-year contract, and they have a 5-year incentive program. Now, he can go into much more detail and answer questions, but I would recommend moving forward with it. It's energy savings. It's also, there's a communication node on these new lights that when they're out, Dominion's automatically notified, as opposed to residents noticing and calling us, and so that delay in it being fixed. And there's also, for security purposes, better lighting and more directional lighting, so you get light where you want it and not where you don't.
All right, so is there a motion for us to participate in this program?
So moved.
There's a second.
Second.
So Councilman Milliken moved and Councilman Mullinax seconded. Any further discussion or questions for Ashley or the representative from Dominion? Yeah, Councilwoman Mignano.
Yes, so where are these streetlights going to be? Where are we replacing them at? Are they main thoroughfares? Are they neighborhoods?
So my understanding is that all of the street lights in the town will be replaced. So they would be there everywhere that there are street lights that belong to the town. And some are in neighborhoods, and some of them are on various roads and streets. Is that correct, Ashley?
That's correct. And I'm going to share my screen real quick and pull up. Can you all see that yet?
We're not seeing that. We're still seeing a bunch of different people. Here we go.
There it is.
Okay, so it's the pole would stay, and the light would be replaced from this to this. And then there's just a rendering of the whiter light and the less shadows.
Yeah, this is really a positive, this is a very positive thing because you have more control over where the light goes. So you don't have to have the light go into the marsh, which is very nice. It can be more specific. It's also very much more energy efficient. So that's why it's already kind of going along with our more green approach to living in the town.
Okay. I'm thinking of the ones around Jacksonville. I think those are this same type of light, and the difference on the interstate is astounding.
All right, thank you. Any other questions or discussion? Hearing none, Ashley, please call the roll.
Councilman Bowles,
Yes.
Councilwoman Mignano,
Yes.
Councilman Milliken,
Yes.
Councilman Mullinax,
Yes.
Mayor Woolsey.
Yes. All right, so that passes. And so now let's go to the engineering cost for underground power line project on Foxcroft Road. Ashley, would you explain what this is about?
I believe it was in October, you all approved moving forward with undergrounding a portion of Foxcroft Road. And so they have come back to us with that engineering cost that will now need approval. Sorry, I'm just trying to pull that up in front of me. The estimated cost of that is $5,000. And we do not have an estimate yet of what our share of the undergrounding will be. You know, portion of it will come from from Dominion. We'll pay for it from our non-standard service fund. But until they actually do the engineering, we will not know that cost yet.
All right, so is there a motion in favor?
Moved.
Councilman Mullinex makes the motion. Is there a second?
Second.
I'll call Councilman Bowles seconded. Any further discussion?
I have a question. The second leg they showed us on Fortson, which was the second most outage or the highest frequency of outages. Is there any cost saving if we get them to do an engineering plan for that at the same time this one?
I'm not sure. And I'm not sure. Robert is not on there. We could ask him, but he is off the line.
Okay.
All right, so any further discussion? All right, hearing none. Ashley, please call the roll.
Councilman Bowles?
Yes.
Councilwoman Mignano?
Yes.
Councilman Milliken?
Yes.
Councilman Mullinex?
Yes.
Mayor Woolsey?
No. So that passes. Okay, so now we'll go to committee reports. The next is first is a land use committee, Councilwoman Mignano.
Yes. I met with Ashley and the gentleman from Habitat for Humanity. And Mark Marr and Michael O'Neill, and I thought we had a really productive meeting. We talked about the internship with the high school. Dana Miley was unable to attend due to an unexpected trip she had to take out of town. However, we got the information about what the student interns can do, and we plan to start this whole initiative for training high schoolers and helping the repair care list shrink from some extra hands starting in February. And one other note, it had come to our attention. I just want to say thank you to everyone in Harbor Woods who helped and all of the other people who helped when there was a woman who had not had heat for a long time, was able to be helped through their generosity and the generosity of Holy City Heating and Air, who put in all the equipment.
Well, thank you. So next we'll go on to the Environment and Beautification Committee, Councilman Milliken.
Yes, thank you. James Island Pride is the citizens group that is represented by its action on the Environment and Beautification Committee. Our next litter pickup is not until February, but we actually had several members of James Island Pride participate in the state-sponsored Grab a Bag event over the Thanksgiving holiday by picking up litter along some of our roadways. We picked up along Harborview, Fort Johnson, and Dills Bluff Road because there was a good amount of trash there, and it was a good way to work off some of that turkey. I want to thank the mayor and town staff for participating in the James Island Pride South Carolina Arbor Day celebration at Town Hall. Particularly, I want to thank Mark Johnson and Douglas Sparling for all of their help with all of the Arbor Day arrangements, getting the trees and supervising some of the hole digging, etc. The Tree Council, at the event, the Tree Council unveiled our Tree City USA sign, which was sort of a big deal, and it's in front of Town Hall, and you'll notice it when you pull into the parking lot. Josh Nissoff and the Boy Scouts from Troop 88 planted a tree, And then last Saturday, the Scouts planted 3 trees out at Pinckney Park as a continuation of Mr. Nissoff's Eagle Project. So that's what James Island Pride's been up to. We'll let you know about the dates on the February litter pickup at our January meeting. We haven't seen the schedule for 2021 yet. That's all I have.
Thank you, Councilman Milliken. It was a great Arbor Day ceremony. Any questions for Councilman Milliken? Okay, hearing none. I have no report for the Children's Committee. The History Committee, the report from the History Committee is the History Council did meet, and we continue to work on and plan for the First Shot commemoration in April. Then for Rethink Folly Road, the Rethink Folly Road Steering Committee met on Wednesday, just yesterday on the 16th, and we got a report on the phase 1 of the Folly Road sidewalk project, and that right-of-way acquisition should begin early next year as soon as the maintenance agreement that this council approved on our end is approved through DOT. And then the steering committee asked the tool, our consultant, to provide a report on the 90% plans on those sidewalks. We also, the steering committee asked Tool to propose design standards for the 12-foot multi-use path that the different jurisdictions are now requiring with new development or redevelopment along Folly Road. The town adopted, this council adopted that some time ago. The city of Charleston has just recently adopted it. Charleston County plans to adopt it, and the city of Folly Beach has also adopted it. So we are going to develop some design standards for recommendation to the different jurisdictions. And I guess I didn't ask for any questions about the History Committee or History Council. Are there any questions? And then any questions regarding Rethink Folly Road Steering Committee business? All right, well, thank you. We'll go back to Public Safety Committee, Councilman Mullinex.
Oh, I'm sorry. I have nothing to report at this time.
Okay, so now back to you again, Councilman Mullinex, the Drainage Committee. Any report for that?
I hope to have a meeting sometime in January. I don't know the precise day at this time, but when I know something, I'll get back with you as soon as I can.
Okay, thank you. Any questions for Councilman Mullinex? All right, so now let's go to Business Development Committee, Councilman Walls.
Thank you. No report this month.
Okay, thank you. Next, go to the Tree Advisory Committee, Councilman Milliken.
Yes, the Tree Advisory Committee did not meet in December, and the next meeting will be January 12th, 2021. The Tree Council has worked with Mark Johnson in Public Works and Kristen Crane in developing a program where we produce a survey of trees in the public spaces on James Island. Public spaces include all of our right-of-ways along the roadways and trees in our parks and building locations. The idea is that we produce a record of all the species, the general health of the tree's location, so that we can treat trees with specific health problems and perhaps evaluate and if it's a safety issue, replace them. So the idea is that the Tree Council hires some interns to perform some of these measurements. Right now, we have money in our tree care fund of $20,000, and I calculated the cost of hiring some interns to perform some of these measurements and do the data entry into the town's GeoThink program. The amount of money that I think we're going to need is about $8,000, and that will cover 4 interns who can work in groups of 2 to do the measurements. They would then bring the data back and enter them in the GeoThink program so that we get a nice mapping of the locations of all of our trees on the island. The GeoThink program has layers, and we have a tree layer in that, as well as a layer for drainage and another layer for stop signs and signage on the island. So this is kind of a good way to kind of put a lot of what we have on the island into sort of a three-dimensional perspective. So it's a very good thing to do. Another element to this would be a training element, and we would like to also have Chris Gerard, our town arborist, do some training of our interns so that they know how to do the measurements correctly and how to grade the trees for various types of health concerns. So the idea is that we transfer, and I'm going to need a motion for this, I guess, or make a motion. But I would like to allocate $8,000 from the tree maintenance and care account that's already in our budget for the tree internship program.
Is there a second? Second. So any discussion? Hearing none. Ashley, would you call the roll?
Yes.
Sorry. Councilwoman Mignano?
That's okay. We can read lips.
Councilman Milliken?
Yes.
Councilman Mullinax?
Yes.
Mayor Woolsey?
Yes. Anything further, Councilman Miller?
No, thank you. That's all.
All right, thank you very much. All right, so the next is James Island Intergovernmental Council. Unless Ashley can tell me that there's a scheduled meeting, I have nothing. I somehow end up getting these reports.
There is a scheduled meeting.
Sorry.
It is tentatively scheduled for January the 20th at 7 p.m.
Well, that's coming up soon. Okay, thank you. Next, we move to proclamations and resolutions. So the first is Resolution 2020-19, authorization to exercise eminent domain for Green Health Community Drainage Improvements Project. Ashley, would you explain this?
Yeah, so just to recap, there are 36 easements that were needed for this project. We have 23. 7 of them were really close to settling. There's 5 that, in addition to the ones that we already had to go through eminent domain on because of heirs property, that also now need to go through this. None of them are because the folks do not want to give the drainage easement. It's all sort of a, because the property hasn't been probated, parcels that are in someone's deceased name, and it just hasn't gone to probate yet. First Baptist Church has actually been really helpful in helping us identify some of these folks and their family members. We may not need all 5 of these. One of them might get settled without having to do this. But our attorney and right-of-way acquisition agent are still working through that one.
All right, so is there a motion in favor?
I make that motion.
Councilman Mullinax makes a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Councilman Milliken seconds it. Any discussion?
I'm sorry if I missed this when Ashley was explaining, but do we have we have to compensate somebody when you exercise eminent domain, right?
Yes, and these 5 parcels together, the cost estimate on the area we'd be getting easement on is $14,900. Because we have to go through eminent domain, we have to actually get an appraisal on each one. So that would be an additional $1,000 for each. And then the attorney's time he charges $185 an hour. Paralegal charges $95 an hour. Don't know the time that it will take. I don't have an estimate of hours.
Right.
But directly to answer your question, Councilman Bowles, is that the heirs will be compensated. The heirs of the owner would be compensated for the property. And we'll have to go through the process of discovering who those heirs are.
I'm sorry, Pam. I did not answer your question.
Any other questions or comments? Well, I think that we need to go forward with this, given the nature of the property and the inability of the people who live on the property to have clear title and provide the easement. There's really no other option to provide drainage that's needed by this community than go through this process. Any other discussion? Okay, hearing none, would you please call the roll?
Councilman Bowles,
Yes.
Councilwoman Mignano,
Yes.
Councilman Milliken,
Yes.
Councilman Mullinax,
Yes.
Mayor Woolsey.
Yes. Okay, next we have Resolution 2020-20, best practices to address sea level rise and climate change. Do we have a motion to adopt?
So moved.
We have a second.
Second.
Okay, so now we'll go into discussion. I will like to make a motion to amend by substitution the language that I sent to the members of council. Would the town administrator please share that? Okay, first I'll ask, is there a second? So it's seconded by Councilman Mullinax. So I'll speak to it. I believe that this alternative language is something that the majority of council can get behind. It shows that clearly town council is concerned about climate change and global warming, and that it provides for a set of actions that are appropriate to our small town government that will address these concerns. Any further discussion?
Yes, I'd like to speak to some of these. First of all, Mayor, I do appreciate your help in this, and I think that it's very important to recognize that while your substituted resolution pretty much acknowledges that climate change is a problem, it also goes a little bit beyond what the other version did by giving us a direction for some things that we wish to accomplish. It says that the town will support economically viable solutions for climate change. It will encourage residents to increase their efforts to reduce their carbon footprint, and it'll specify commitment by the town to address climate change through its budget process. And that goes beyond what we were proposing before, because what we were proposing before was simply to make a plan. So this actually is a way to perhaps put a plan into motion. So I appreciate those suggestions, and I'll be voting for it. Thank you.
All right, any other discussion? Hearing none, so this would be, yes, Councilman. No, I'm sorry, I thought I heard someone. Oh, I'm hearing myself echo. So if there's no further discussion, this is a vote for the, would you please call the roll, Ashley?
Councilman Bowles,
Yes.
Councilwoman Mignano,
Yes.
Councilman Milliken,
Yes.
Councilman Mullinax,
Yes.
Mayor Woolsey.
Yes. And so now we're discussing the amended language. Is there any further discussion?
Yes. There at the very end, the last clause of this, if you go to the right here, where it ends with 2021 fiscal year and
Yep.
subsequent years, I would like to add subsequent years to that so that we could continue to consider this in the budget process moving forward.
All right, so there's a motion to amend the resolution to include in subsequent years in the second to the last page.
Yeah, right here.
Ashley, you have that? Is there a second? Is there a second?
Second,
Okay, Councilman Bowles seconds. All right, so now we'll vote on that amendment, or is there further discussion of that amendment? Hearing none, we'll vote on that amendment. Would you call the roll, Ashley?
Councilman Bowles,
yes.
Councilwoman Mignano,
Yes.
Councilman Milliken,
Yes.
Councilman Mullinax,
Yes.
Mayor Woolsey.
Yes. All right, so now we are continuing to discuss the resolution as amended to include add and subsequent years. Any further discussion? Hearing none, would you please call the roll?
Councilman Bowles,
Yes.
Councilwoman Mignano,
Yes.
Councilman Milliken,
Yes.
Councilman Mullinax,
Yes.
Mayor Woolsey.
Yes, so that passes. Okay, so now we go to resolution 2020-12 that was 2020-12 that was deferred, and so we come on to continued discussion. I would move to table. Is there a second?
Second.
Mayor, Mayor, if I could have a moment just to clarify what we're doing here. We have to dispose of the older version of the climate resolution, but the one that we just passed stays intact, right?
Yes.
So now we're disposing of the previous version. All right,
That's
thank you.
So if there's no further discussion, would you call the roll? Ashley, this is to table that, what we discussed in September.
Councilman Bowles,
Yes.
Councilwoman Mignano,
Just to be clear, we're voting to table the climate emergency declaration. Is that correct?
The one that's called climate emergency mobilization that we had deferred in September. So we've already passed a resolution regarding climate.
Yes.
Councilman, oh, I'm sorry.
Councilman Milliken,
Yes.
Councilman Mullinax,
Yes.
Mayor Woolsey.
Yes, and so that is tabled. Okay, next we go to emergency ordinances and emergency ordinance emergency 7/2020, which is the face covering ordinance, is set to expire tomorrow. I would move that we extend that ordinance through January 21st, which is the date of our next meeting. Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Hearing none. Ashley, would you please call the roll?
Councilman Bowles,
Yes.
Councilwoman Mignano,
No.
Councilman Milliken,
Yes.
Councilman Mullinax,
Yes.
Mayor Woolsey.
Yes. Okay, so that passes. So now we go to ordinances for second and final reading. This is ordinance 2020-11, our amendment to the floodplain ordinance for the town of James Island. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Is there a second? Second. So Councilman Milliken moved and Councilman Mullinax seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none, Ashley, call the roll, please.
Councilman Bowles,
Yes.
Councilwoman Mignano,
Yes.
Councilman Milliken,
Yes.
Councilman Mullinax,
Yes.
Mayor Woolsey.
Yes. Is there a motion to go into executive session? Hearing none, let's go to, is there any new business? Okay. So let's go to announcements. Any announcements, Councilman? Excuse me?
I'm
Councilman
just
Bowles?
looking at you, Mayor. I'm looking at the agenda or number 8. And maybe I heard this wrong, but the face covering emergency is extended, right? I just want to make sure I caught that correctly. I'm having some audio problems with my computer.
We voted to extend it to January 21st.
Just okay. Thank you for that.
All right, so we're now at announcements. Councilman Bowles, do you have any announcements or closing comments? Councilwoman Mignano, no, Councilwoman Mignano.
Yes. Just closing comments. I hope everybody has a really safe and happy Christmas, happy holidays to everyone. And we look forward to a better and brighter new year, that's for sure.
We all hope so. Thank you. Councilman Milliken.
Yes, thank you. I just want to thank everybody, all of our citizens, for all the feedback that they provided regarding the issues that were before us this evening. I think it's always important to participate, and I think it's very important for you to continue your participation to let your representative government know. So thank you and have a happy and safe holiday.
Thank you. Councilman Mullinax.
I would just like to wish everybody happy holidays. I have, please come by Town Hall. I have left some cards and some gifts for you all. So please be sure to come by and get them.
Well, thank you everyone for coming to the meeting and for all your comments. And I call the meeting adjourned. There being no further business, the meeting is adjourned. Thank you.